Bill Barr, former Attorney General, twice Attorney General, former friend and cabinet colleague. Bill, thank you for coming on. Just start off, just tell me your impressions about this whole story. You heard my riff. I know you were talking to Andy McCarthy in National Review. What are you thinking here, Bill Barr?
Well, I agree with most of what you said, Larry. Now, obviously, we don't have the indictment, so there's a little bit of speculation involved. But based on the news reports, if they're accurate, this is an abomination. It's the epitome of the abuse of prosecutorial power to bring a case that would not be brought against anyone else. They are going after the man, not a crime. And the legal theory, frankly, is pathetically weak. The case is held together by, chicken wire and paper clips and rubber bands. It's a lousy case. It's a shame. It's a shameful episode in our history where this local prosecutor is trying to affect the political process by bringing this case.
This is politically driven, as you suggested. I think we all know that, or at least conservatives all know that. What is this tattered legal theory? I'm still trying to figure that out.
Well, according to news reports, the threshold crime is false business records, apparently reporting payments that were made to reimburse Michael Cohen, who had paid off Stormy Daniels, and the characterization of those payments as legal payments. And the claim is that that's false and therefore violated a misdemeanor statute in the first instance against false documents. I actually don't think that's a valid claim in this case because the statute actually requires that it be done with the intent to defraud. So if you have false business records, and you're committing insurance fraud or some other kind of fraud where some value is taken from somebody else and you falsely get value in your own name, then the false records would be a misdemeanor. But I don't understand the basis for a fraud claim here. But then they take this misdemeanor, which also has a problem with the statute of limitations, and they try to shoehorn it into a felony by claiming that the reason the document was falsified, the documents were falsified, was to cover up another crime. In this case, they're assuming that the payments were a campaign finance violation because they were effectively a contribution to the Trump campaign. I can tell you that's not the law. I don't think that's how the Justice Department would view it. It wasn't brought by the Justice Department during the Trump administration, but even after the Trump administration left, there was no inhibition on the Department of Justice to bring this federal claim if they thought it was valid, and it was never brought. So aside from that, I think it's quite clear under the law that payment, I'm going to call it hush money, I don't like that term, but payments of hush monies to keep, affairs or other things like that secret are not inherently unlawful. The question under the statute is, was it a campaign contribution? I think the law is quite clear it is not. And in fact, I think Merrick Garland, when he was a D.C. Circuit judge, wrote an opinion along these lines relating to Senator Craig, Larry Craig. But put that aside, under the statute, it would be a personal payment, a payment of a personal expense, and that is not a violation of the statute if it's the kind of payment that would have been made even apart from the campaign. And I think there's a compelling argument here that when you're dealing with a private company that's named after its founder, it's an eponymous company, Trump, of course there would be payment to protect the reputation of the owner of the corporation. So I think it's a weak case altogether. Unfortunately, I think it's going to accomplish what I think its political purpose, which is to inject chaos into the Republican process. I actually think probably the governing intent here is to help Trump and have all the news focused on this kind of stuff for the next couple of years and turn the Republican primary into a circus.
I mean, is there any doubt, maybe I'm overstating it in my opening, is there any doubt that the basic thought here, leftist Democrats do not want Trump back in the White House, period, full stop? Is there any doubt about that? I mean, and they'll do anything it takes, legal, illegal, you name it, they'll do it. That is their ultimate goal. There's no policy goal here. There's no help in America. There's no wealth and prosperity and happiness. There's no bringing people up from low incomes to high incomes. It's to stop Donald Trump.
I think there's some Democrats who would like to drive him from the political scene completely because of Trump derangement syndrome, and they consider him very dangerous and so forth. But I actually think that the most Democrats who get involved in this kind of thing, they actually want to run against Trump because they think, whether they're right or wrong, people can debate, but they think they can beat him. And so they are actually trying to help him by generating the support of his base, and they feel that that will generate their own turnout. And so they're essentially, I think, playing for a repeat of the 2020 election.
I mean, I think the Democratic Party can't figure it out. Half the Democrats think Trump is the easiest guy to beat in the general election. The other half fear so much that he might win the White House. I don't think they can quite figure it out. You can't have it both ways, but you and I can let them decide that. We don't have to decide that, at least not this evening. So, Bill Barr, where does this lead? Now we're prosecuting a former president on very dubious grounds, really small beer, whatever the technicalities are. Where does this lead? Where does this take this country?
Well, you know, to me, this is a fateful step. You know, I've often complained about the use of the criminal justice process in the political realm, but this is, to me, there's no better. This is the epitome of the abuse of the prosecutorial power to preempt political decisions and sow discord in the political process. And I think it's going. You know, we're going to rue the day we cross this Rubicon. There'll be more and more of this, and you know, it just doesn't end well. It doesn't end well.
It really, I think it pulls the fabric apart. I mean, the country is already split. It's already divided. I know there's different motives here. I'm sure there are some Democrats who are still moderate Democrats who have a different point of view than their brethren on the far left. I mean, Bill Barr, how's this look to people in Britain, in Europe, in Latin America, in Beijing, for example, in Vladimir Putin in Moscow? I mean, how's this look? Or is nobody thinks about that stuff anymore?
I think it makes us look like a banana republic, and it should. Now, this is New York State, and New York State has been acting like a banana republic. They had that civil lawsuit against Trump and his children, that civil lawsuit brought by the state attorney general. That was a political hit job as well. This ratchets that up because it's a criminal case. And, you know, these cases together, to me, mean the breakdown of the rule of law in New York State.
How about the breakdown of the rule of law? How about the politicalization of the rule of law in the whole country, Bill Barr?
That's been happening. You know, all our institutions, Larry, are being politicized, all of them. The media, science, medicine, education. And people aren't doing their jobs in those institutions. They are pursuing a higher political agenda. And so they sacrifice what those institutions should be all about. And so we see that now with the breakdown of the rule of law, where people will decide cases not based on principle and not with a blindfold on, regardless of who it is who's in the dock. They are trying to use the law as a political tool.
And Bill Barr, last question, because we're old friends and I always respect your wisdom. How, in God's name, can we stop this very bad trend and lift this country back up?
Well, I always say we have so many problems, it can be daunting. But I know the first step back, and the first step back is the step you and I took back in 1980 together when we worked for Ronald Reagan, which is we have to win. The Republican Party has to paint a positive vision of where we're going to go in the future, and we need a strong leader who can take the country there and win a decisive victory. Remember, when Ronald Reagan ran, the liberals looked as if they were in charge of everything, and then a few years later, liberal was a dirty word because the Reagan administration was so successful.
You're right. Be positive, be constructive, show people there is a way out. William Barr, former Attorney General, thank you ever so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Larry.
You betcha.